Hi, welcome back to my channel, Reclaim with Dr. David. So good to be back. So good to be back. So we are kicking off with the next episode, and I can only hope that my story is bringing hope in your life and giving you different perspectives about life, and hopefully that this story will help you to trust God in whatever that you could be going through, things that might make you doubt God's plan about your life. Hopefully my story will be a tool or a message to you that says, hold on, don't give up. It's not over yet. God is able. So, previously, I mentioned that we were running away from DRC Congo. Before, we ran from Burundi, which is my native country, where I was born. I'm Burundian. So, we went from our country to DRC Congo, running from war. When we arrived in Congo, another war broke, which was, in my opinion, even worse than what we had seen before. Now, we had to run back to Burundi. And when we ran back to Burundi, we were welcomed by a small church. And at the border, so they helped us with transport, and they took us to a refugee camp. And this refugee camp had amazing people. There was a church, a good community. There was a few missionaries there, and this refugee camp was built around the church where my parents used to go. So we had some relatives there. It was a good time to kind of reconnect with the family, extended family, which include my cousins. They were there, my aunties and uncles. So it's kind of nice to be able to be back together, even though it was in a refugee camp. So there was thousands of people living in there. A small congested area with so many people. There were, a lot of outbreak, different conditions, I guess, due to lack of, sanitary places and all those kind of things. So there were a lot of difficulties, in the refugee camp to live there together. But I think that I'm not gonna go into details a lot as yet. But it was a nice community, church, and so we lived in a small tent. So I'm talking about a tent. There's no bedroom. There's nothing. That was my parents, my dad and my mom, and 5 of us as kids. So we lived in that tent for quite some time, and we would depend on, various organizations who would bring food to us, which include the UNHCR. So these people that would come and would give us food. We didn't have clothes. We would have to depend to people who would bring clothes. All these organizations. There were a couple of missionaries who were there supporting us because they were part of the church as well, and they'd be getting help and from international partners who would come and assist and help the refugees in the camp. As we lived there, I started growing up as a little boy, now starting to be aware, starting to have interest in things. I remember one day I just grew an interest in studying. I just wanted to go to school. I started going into what do you call them? The place where we threw there was a very big pit where we threw the garbage, if you call garbage or rubbish, depending on where you're from, if you're American or British. But so there was a place where we threw garbage or rubbish into the pit, and it was a very dangerous place. But that was our playground, and it was very deep, a very, very deep pit, very large. So we're going to throw things, whatever that you call, household waste, things like that. We go there. And I remember my mom used to tell us not to play around it, but boys, yeah, sometimes I try not to blame my boys too, because, boys, they're just boys. I would still go and play around that because we thought it was fun. And when there is too much of this rubbish or garbage into the pit, they will burn them. And when they're burning them, they will tell kids not to get close, because if you fall inside it, that's it. And I remember that when we were playing there, one of my friends fell inside, and yeah, we didn't survive. There's so much that happened in that camp. That was extreme poverty in terms of sanitary, in terms of toilets. All these things were like really, really bad. So yeah, I started growing interest about school. And what did I do? I started going into those area where they threw garbage and rubbish, and I look for pieces of paper with things written on them. And then I will take that piece of paper at home, and I will ask my dad, I borrow his pen, and I start going through them. So that was my preschool. So I would go through them and copy everything. I didn't know how to write, I didn't know how to read, but that was my first step. I was just interested in what is this, that, the books, how do you put these things together? So I would go and collect all these pieces of paper with a few things written on them. They would try a few words written on them, and they would try to copy them. So eventually, in the refugee camp, they started a school, and the school was tent. So we actually had a school built with tents, and inside we had we would sit on stones, and eventually later on they built branches. They would bring branches of trees, put them together, and we sit on them like logs of trees, and we sit there and study. It wasn't an ordinary school, as you can hear. So that was the school that was they studied in the refugee camp, and those who were formerly teachers who ran to this refugee camp as teachers, they would put them together and just start teaching kids. But there was high demand. There were so many kids who could not go to school, who did not get a chance to go to school in the previous few years, who were older than me. And my sister, who is older than me, had not gone to school either. She's 2 years older than me. So what happened? They prioritized the older kids. But I said, I want to go to school. I really want to go to school. And they said, you need to wait for the next year. I remember I was so angry. I was crying and angry, and my mom said, you just have to wait. Your sister is the one who is priority now. They're prioritizing older kids. All right, so I was really sad, and I made a plan. I said, I'm not going to just give up. I'm not going to just sit and. So when my sister went to school, I will sneak behind. So we enter into this tent, and I will stay outside, and I will watch through a hole. So tents, they were not fully they were not the best tents. There were some holes, so I'll just go and watch what they're doing, and I'll bring a piece of paper with me. Oh man. Yeah, when I remember, it's crazy. But I believe God was starting to build something in me. God was calling me. God was showing me His plan, for my life. So as a refugee boy inside that refugee camp, I started having, these are actual visions, So I really wanted to know how to read and how to write and learn things. So I started to attend secretly, and I would watch what the teacher's teaching, and I thank God that I could retain information very easily. Let me just put it that way. So I would come home and I would start writing, A, B, C, D, or whatever these things, and the letters A, B, and it was strange. At this point, in my life, what I used to do was just playing football. I used to make toy cars out of wires, and I would sell them. So that was one of the things that I used to do as a little boy, because I didn't have any toys, so I would make them myself. Anyway, so we do this, but I felt like no, this is not what I don't want to just keep making toys and having fun with other kids. I want to go to school. So eventually the teacher noticed that I was coming actually regularly, and and hide and watch what she's teaching. So she talked to my mother and my father because we lived in the same tent. We all knew each other. We lived in the same camp, so they were like neighbors. The teacher talked to my father and my mother. Say, this makes me a bit, emotional, just to see what God can do. So they told them. My teacher told them. Told my parents, we will let him come in. I don't think it's fair to let him just stay outside. Yeah. That was the beginning. So they let me in. I was hungry to study. I was hungry of learning. And so they welcomed me in. They welcomed me in the class. I was not on the list. I was just there as an observer. So they told me, the teacher told me, you can come in anytime. But I was so excited. I was like, it was like the best day of my life. I entered the school every single day. Whatever they teach, I go home and tell my parents, we learn this letter, this and this and this, and this is how it's written. This is how you write it. The tent, when it rained, the class stopped. There was mud on the floor, so obviously mud. So when it rains, the water, we run through the class. There was no door, obviously. So eventually they put like different branches of trees on different sides, and then they put tents together and a tent on top. But when it rained, there would be mud in the class, and we didn't have shoes. Obviously, we didn't have shoes. We didn't have uniform. We didn't have anything. We just walk in, and we didn't have to have a shower to go to school. It was just that. It was just that was the life. We just walk in, and I remember sometime when it rained, the teacher would be standing in front of a class, and there would be like a puddle of water, like a lot of water between the teacher and the student, and all over is just mud, and we still enjoy class. I remember those days. So I remember when they, in the class, on the class task, that we call names. They call names, whatever name. But they never called my name because I was not on the list of students. But for me, that didn't matter. I didn't care. So we stayed there, and I studied, and I loved it. Before the end of primary one, so that was primary one. In the second term, the teacher asked the headmaster to put me on the list. And she said, I think, David should be on the list. And officially, I became a student of that school in the refugee camp. And before it ended, before we finished the school year, something else happened. Something happened that again changed everything. An event that occurred that changed everything. Now, we'll talk about that in the next episode. But at this point, I was just enjoying my life as a student. We'll see in the next video where I'll be talking about this event that happened and that changed everything again. Hey, thank you so much for reaching to the end of this video. We really appreciate your support for this channel and for my story. I'm sharing this story so that more people will be, inspired, and that those who have lost hope, they can reclaim their hope. We will stop the story there, and we continue we'll continue the story in the next video, the upcoming video. In the meanwhile, is there anything that you feel in your heart that you'd like to share from the videos that we have done so far, from the story that I have shared so far? Please go ahead and leave us a comment. It is encouraging for me to see that you guys are engaging and commenting and telling me what you think. Secondly, I would like to encourage you, if you are new to this channel, to subscribe. 64% of those who are watching these videos, you are not subscribed. You are not subscribing. And I would encourage you to subscribe, because this will help us to reach more audience, more people. So please go ahead and subscribe. Also share these videos if you feel that you like them, if you feel like the content is helping you or could help somebody else. So I appreciate your support for this channel, and I'm looking forward to releasing the next video. God bless you, and bye for now. Thank you.